Hi, I'm Diane Krikora, CEO of PartnerPath, and welcome to Technology Channel Videocast. With me, I have not only Charlene O'Hanlon. Hi, Charlene.
Hey, Diane, how are you?
Very good. But we're also joined this week by Mike Vizard. Hi, Mike. How's it going?
Hi, guys. How are you?
We're both doing very well. Wanted to talk this week about its conference season again. And Mike, I know you're out and about running around from conference to conference, and wanted to talk a little bit about kind of what you're hearing in the different conferences, partner conferences that is. And I know you just got back from VMworld, probably still jet lagged, if there was even a jet lag option there. Yep, there's the badge. And wanted to hear a little bit about what you thought of the show, particularly as it applies to their partner community.
Well, I think, the channel partners that are out there were pretty happy. I mean, if you look at VMworld's financials, they look, despite all the open source people out there saying doom and gloom and there's a VMware tax on everything, the numbers were pretty impressive. So what seems to be going on is they're really boosting up the attach rate and on top of the core ESX platform. And they were really talking about how NSX is really the next big thing for them and will eventually supersede ESX as their biggest product. But they're a long way from making that happen yet. But at the same time, they do have a new channel chief in play. His name is Brandon Sweeney. So he comes from out of core commercial accounts, and he said his whole mission was just not to mess things up because they like the growth rate and where things are going. And then Ross Brown has moved over to strategic alliances, where he's engage in what I would call of nation building, where he wants to go out to partners and help them rebuild their business models around managed services for applications, rather than thinking about the infrastructure, which is becoming more and more automated.
So that's interesting. So I heard that Ross Brown had kind of stepped up the ladder or moved on in VMware, and I thought he IoT charge. Was that much of a conversation there?
No, he was driving. He is the senior vice president for strategic corporate alliances now. So he's squarely focused still on the partners. And when I talked to him, he was pretty it. So he thinks that there's a lot to be done there in terms of just, almost literally working with each individual partner to recraft their business models.
Hey, do you think that the fact that the partners seem to be in a good spot at this conference, do you think it had anything to do with the fact that finally, the acquisition by Dell has kind of settled out, and maybe the lines have become a little bit more aligned, and the channel partners have a better idea of how they can take the Dell technology, EMC technology, and VMware technology and kind of use it to their benefit?
Yeah, I think there's some of that. I also think VMware is going to great lengths to not let the partnership or the alliance with Dell and that merger affect their other relationships. So they're doing a nice job of maintaining the partnerships with other organizations. So I don't think most of the VMware sales are all on Dell platforms. I'm sure it's a significant part of it, but they're really going out of their way to keep VMware isolated. And they have Michael Dell standing up saying, whatever's good for VMware is good for Dell Technologies. And so he pretty much gives them free rein.
Yeah, that's also interesting. Most of the announcements that I heard out of the show and watching it pretty closely were more product. I mean, they talked a lot about security, and software-defined data centers. But I didn't hear a lot about kind of partner programs or model changes or any news coming out of there other than Brandon. We'll talk about Brandon as well. Any news coming out of that?
No, most of the focus seemed to be more steady Eddie. There's going to be a lot more marketing programs from them and more focus on additional competencies. But I didn't hear anything from them talking about changing the fundamentals in any major way.
Charlene, does that seem odd to you? I mean, every year we see vendors like at least announce something, and Cisco's always announcing a new program, or Microsoft's got a new enablement strategy, or so it's surprising. I guess it's not really a partner show. There is a partner day, but it's like Cisco has a whole partner show and Microsoft has a whole partner show, but it is a little interesting that there wasn't as much kind of out of VMware around. Is that interesting? I mean,
yeah, no, I see what you're saying, and I think on one hand, yeah, it is interesting because they're not putting much of a focus on their channel partner base, but I also think part of that is because they are kind of hyper focused on keeping the ship, you know, just moving forward, and really not, you know, screwing around with everybody's business plans, basically. I also think some of that has to do with the fact that they're trying to suss out what their channel partner base is going to look like as we get deeper into this changing role of the solution provider. I think VMware is kind of at a critical point in this transformation for a lot of channel partners because they are so heavily entrenched in this kind of software and services based business model. It's to them, I think it's more a question of what is our channel partner going to look like this time next year? What are their needs going to be, and how can we address that? And so I think it's possible they're just kind of listening this year rather than.
There's a bit of a time bomb here in this whole conversation for the partners, though, because if you look at VMware Cloud Foundation, it's all updated by VMware, and the same thing is going to happen with this new AWS offer, where the upgrade process is completely managed by VMware. And if that happens, then the partners have to figure out how they're going to create opportunities for services, because it won't be happening at the product level. It's got to happen above that whole VMware stack. So I think that's going to be a major challenge for a lot of partners in the coming year.
Interesting.
And are they at the conference? Were they addressing that vision or visioning a lot? I know there was a day around the partner side, and I know they had a partner exchange as well.
Yeah, they've been talking about it for a little while now because it's mostly wrapped around this VMware Cloud Foundation offering. It's still relatively nascent, so I think most of the partners haven't quite figured out what really are for them. And of course, you know, the AWS stuff, it's like available in one zone now in the West Coast, and then it'll be on the East Coast later this year, and then around the globe sometime in 2018. So the partners have a little time to kind of sort this out, but because their customers really haven't moved that far ahead yet, but it seems at this point VMware is sending some heavy signals about who's going to own the upgrade process.
Yeah, it also sounded like when their big announcement, at least around the partners side that I was paying attention to and listening to, was on the AWS, right? They had kind of talked about AWS as a big partnership, and they were going to provide more awesome details around pricing and availability at the event. And it sounds like availability is West Coast.
Yeah, availability is West Coast. Pricing is going to be in. You can buy it in compute hours, or you can license it for 1 to 3 years, I think was the program. But that's pretty standard AWS kind of pricing.
And then kind of lastly, you mentioned that also there was the announcement of Brandon Sweeney. And, you know, Brandon's been at VMware for 10 years. And it kind of in the channel, and then commercial side, and then in alliances, and then commercial business. So how is his role portrayed? Is he taking over what was Ross's old role?
Yeah, he's taking over for Ross essentially, and you know, he's trying not to rock the boat. He's got a lot of deals in the pipeline to close, so his primary focus is just making sure that, I think they said there was something like 50,000 registered deals somewhere in the pipeline that they needed to close. So I mean, he was really just emphasizing the fact that, you know, his primary mission is not to mess it up.
Whatever you do, don't touch anything. Just leave it alone.
It must be interesting to kind of have this role after we've seen, you know, quite a few very, very well-known channel chiefs through VMware, and then, you know, and Brandon's been there for a long time and is a channel chief in his own right, but also just to be all like, hey, I'm not going to do anything. I mean, every channel chief I know that, you know, kind of transitions to a new job is like, we're going to do an assessment, and we're going to do a benchmark, and we're going to make it better. It's just like, not touching.
I did not get a sense that we were talking to, Brandon Sweeney, the mad barber of the channel. It seemed like he was pretty rational.